All right, Boca Raton Bowl, Western Kentucky, James Madison. We've got the James Madison Dukes, 7-point favorites here in this game. The total sitting at 53.5, 54 across the board here in this one. JMU, of course, a pretty good offensive team throughout the course of the year, no doubt. We'll see if that carries over to this bowl game, but obviously they've got a pretty athletic quarterback, Alonzo Burnett, George Pettaway running the ball, pretty solid receiving core, and all things considered to be 8-4 for this program this year, with Cignetti going to Indiana, new head coach obviously taking over the reins. A lot of players transferred out of James Madison when Cignetti moved on. It was actually a pretty solid coaching job, all things considered, by Bob Chesney, who I think was a great hire for James Madison. This guy's going to do good things. He's a good head coach. He did great stuff at his previous destination before he got the JMU job. I believe Holy Cross, the FCS team, is who he coached, and did a really nice job. They were always in the playoff. They were always a pretty good team. It's a good hire, and I think 8-4, all things considered, with what he had to deal with this year for James Madison, was pretty solid. They lose to Marshall, that crazy game in overtime, which is what got Marshall into the Sun Belt Championship game. They actually lost their last 2 games, James Madison, so they sputtered the last 2 games. They lost outright as a 7-point favorite on the road at App State, who had a disappointing year, and then they had the loss to Marshall, 35-33 after that. Meanwhile, Western Kentucky gets absolutely destroyed in this Conference USA Championship game by Jacksonville State, 52-12. It was not even close. First thing you always have to look at, especially this year with Tyson Helton's Western Kentucky team, and especially with the opponent for Western Kentucky, does that team do well running the football? And when you look at James Madison, the answer is yes. They're 30th in the country at 190 rushing yards per game. It's a team that really wants to have the run game be a focal point of the offense. And you look at Western Kentucky, and all year they've been one of the worst teams in FBS college football against the run. And we saw it on full display. Jacksonville State just ran the football right down Western Kentucky's throat. So I'm looking to see, let's make sure that nobody transfers out. I haven't seen any movement yet. Looks like all hands are on deck at the moment for James Madison. I say James Madison team total over is something I've got circled here, because I cashed a ticket, C-Mac, with Jacksonville State team total over Friday night, and it couldn't have been easier. Like 52 points. They scored on almost every possession. Big chunk plays in the run game, explosive plays in the run game. James Madison's capable of doing the same against a team that has just been so awful defensively against the run, like Western Kentucky has been. So that's probably the lean right now for me in this game. As long as nobody's departing here for James Madison, we don't see a lot of transfer portal movement and transfer portal departures. I don't see how they don't run up big points here with that run game against this awful Western Kentucky run defense. So that's what I got my eye on. And I'd probably prefer the team total for James Madison rather than the -7. You could lay the 7 too, but I think I'd just rather hone in on the team total over for JMU here. C-Mac, what do you think for the Boca Raton Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, that defense, 130th, 220, and it just would come and go too at times. That defense, especially if you could run it, get gashed. One thing as the dog though, Western Kentucky and early on in the year covered numbers. When you go back like to BC, of course they were going through things. Toledo, they were small dogs. So that was one thing. When they started laying points, I just flipped on them, and they started losing like crazy. And they got their ass whipped. I mean, Jacksonville State just ran all over them. So James Madison should be able to do that. James Madison, when they play at home, their defensive numbers were unbelievable. They hit the road, and their numbers just went the other way and got burned. So I don't know how good this defense is. And as the year went on, I thought started to slip a lot more and more, and we started to see overs. So I get why you like James Madison team total. Like if this is even lower too, I'll go full game over, because I think Western Kentucky can score here on James Madison. Now we got to wait a little bit on who's in, who's out, of course, but I think both teams could have some success here in this game. So I'd lean over.
Yeah, the full game over did cash as well in that Western Kentucky Jacksonville State game, although obviously a lot of the the legwork was done by Jacksonville State to get that
Yeah.
game over the total. But I think it could get there maybe for the full game as well. But definitely JMU team total over. I've got that circled. We'll see closer to kickoff. Make sure everyone's ready to go. There's not many starters leaving, and I don't think there will be. I think there's actually a team, James Madison, that you'll get a solid, good effort from them.
I think both teams mostly will be there.
Yeah.
I think Valdecamp will
The only
play.
concern for them is the disappointment, right? Losing in the conference title game. But you have 2 weeks, or at least a week and a half to get over it. Actually, just a week, pretty much, because this is next Wednesday, this game.